Hussaini uncle was like a father to me, and
on the 3rd of Sha'aban, when our Holy Prophet told his daughter Fatima what would happen to her son on the plains of Karbala, she asked, "Who will cry for my Hussain?" To that, our Holy Prophet told her that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create a nation whose sons will cry for your sons and whose daughters will cry for your daughters. And to this day, we see those tears being shed and the commemoration of Aba Abdullah being spread all over the globe, from Australia to Asia to Europe to Africa and North America. Within North America, specifically in the city of Toronto, the remembrance of Imam Hussain alayhi salam has grown exponentially. And when we think about how it all started, we think of one man, Qasim Hussain Khan, also known as Hussaini uncle or Hussaini bhai. In this documentary, we will take a look at a small glimpse into his life to see what kind of man he was, what his love for Imam Hussain was, and his journey in establishing it in the city of Toronto, and the kind of impact he has left on his family and his friends.
My dad came to Canada in 1973, the beginning of 1973. He came here, his brother was already here, and he had some friends that were already in Canada, so he came in 1973, and he lived in Toronto for approximately a year, and then he went to Edmonton and lived in Edmonton for another year and a half, and then came back.
Hussaini and I, my relationship or my interaction with Hussaini goes back into, I would say, early 70s when I was here, and later on in an event when he was holding a majlis in his apartment building, before getting into this Midland Imam Barka. Somebody mentioned to me that there is a majlis going on at one of the building in his apartment, and this is where I met him first time. They used to hold a small majlis with close friends and few relatives. So that was the first interaction. And it was not even Muharram at the time, I remember. It was some Imam Shahadat majlis they were having. And from there on, when they were fully in swing with this new place when they bought at Midland, and this is where the ties got attracted each other, and we got familiar with each other, and more getting closer, and the families got closer, alhamdulillah. And from there on, we never looked back, alhamdulillah.
He was very personable, very nice. He had principles, like he would always attend the majalis, he'll take part in it, and whoever comes, he'd deal with them nicely, especially new people, the students that used to come. That was a very important part of it, because people used to have majalis in their homes, and they would limit it to those that they know. They say, we have invited 20 people today, and this. So obviously we had difficulty adjusting those who came in as students, who came as new immigrants, and they had nowhere to go. And during those times, it would be very difficult for the people. And I see that he was so happy when a new person attended the majlis. He'd say, where did you come from? How can we help you? How can we be, of any benefit to you in anything that you have just landed here in a new environment?
He always greeted everyone with open arms. He would come, you would come to the majlis, and he would be the first one to greet you. He would either offer you hot chai right away, or he would, make sure that you had the nayaz that my mom made, handmade, just ready to sit down with you and just eat with you. Just make sure that, you're at my place, you come to this farsh, enjoy it with me, like, spend the time.
No matter when you see him, when you meet him, in what circumstances, no matter, you always see him smiling on his face and very welcoming attitude.
The one thing that's very famous for Lucknow is waza and the type of living and type of moving around and dealing with people. And he continued that tradition here in a very interesting manner that people would know that we are from what location. Like they would say, the tehzeeb, as we say, the civilization, was being projected in his day-to-day life.
The beauty about my dad is that he didn't just open up to Shias. He opened up to just any Muslim. He opened up to people and share that love that he has. And he was so ingrained with his beliefs, the religious beliefs of our imams, and just the teachings. It was so strong that he wanted to share that love. He wanted to let people know that whatever it is, you're a Muslim, whatever, we can work this out. You're here. Let's talk it out.
So I think, yes, he was a busy person. I remember when I was young, he was very busy, but he always found time to be able to spend with us. Whether it was sleeping on his arm at night and him telling us a story about something from the Quran, or an event in Karbala, or a time of what Imam Ali did with Salman Farsi, or story of that sort of hadith narration. He'd always make a personal connection to spend that time. So he spent a lot of time with me, talking to me about these things. And despite the fact that I read them later, but he narrated them to me, so they were instilled in me. And he spent a lot of time on those areas. But where he usually used the balance of his religious activities was to involve us in those religious activities. So he made it almost possible for us to spend time together while doing the religious activities. So we were very fortunate that way, but he was able to kind of balance his time and have us involved in those activities. But what we were doing, we were also doing for spiritual gain, but also spending time as a family while we were doing them.
As he finally settled in the city of Toronto, one thing Hussaini uncle had to bring with him from his homeland, and knew that if anything was going to save himself, his family, and his close friends around him, was the love of Imam Hussain. Along with himself, the love of Imam Hussain and its importance migrated with him.
आज़ादारी जो शुरू की थी वो 72 से शुरू की है, लेकिन इस अदा खाने को जो हमने बनाया है 77 से।
ये टोरंटो का सबसे पुराना इमाम बाड़ा है।
सबसे पहले यहाँ कोई नहीं था, चंद फैमिलियाँ थीं।
So my father's devotion towards Azadari was not just only for himself, it was for everyone to share that same love of the Imam. Typically Muharram is 2 months, 8 days. For him, every occasion was the same. From shahadats to wiladats, he would feel, the same passion.
People were very few in numbers, but the love of Azadari always existed in human being, I would say, and in particular Shias, because the message of Imam Hussain was universal, and it stayed that way, and it still is, and will inshallah up to the Day of Judgment. So the people, they were thirsty, they wanted to quench their thirst, how to get involved, how to organize majalises, because they have left home. So their home sickness also at the same time, and the urge to commemorate.
They used to come from different parts of, Toronto, all over the place they will come. They'll come from the east, from the west, and wherever, and he had a very good relationship with the people who are coming. Because most of our relationships here have been established after coming here.
The inspiration I would see is that, my dad would tear up anytime he would hear the Imams. He would share stories with us, or he would be talking about the Imams, and you would hear it in his voice. You'd see him tear, and you'd hear in his voice, you'd feel that passion. And during Masaibs, you'd see him, the first one, just before Masaib, you would hear him So just before Masahibs, you would see him cry. You know, it would be just by hearing the name of our Imams.
My father's inspiration for Imam Hussain, I think it happened by design. You know, my grandfather named him Hussaini. That was his calling name at home. And I think it really had an effect on his personality, to be very honest with you. His devotion to Imam Hussain, his love for Imam Hussain, his love for the Ahlulbayt was another level of love.
And it sounds very sweet also. And it has a love of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. When you say somebody as a Hussaini, that means he is a believer in Hussain. That's why he's Hussaini. And to be honest with you, he was well fitted with his nickname all along. Hussaini was nothing but Hussaini. And he showed throughout his actions. Hussaini was Azadar. Hussaini again. Hussaini, the best friend. The way Imam wants to see a brotherhood in community. Hussaini was there for that. Again, a Hussaini for Hussain.
His mentality was, for 2 months, 8 days, you don't travel, you don't watch TV, you don't do anything that's social and entertaining. He never just believed in even doing work at that time. He just committed himself to 2 months, 8 days, Muharram Safar, and the 8 days of Rabiul Awwal just for Azadari Imam Hussain. So he wouldn't balance time. He would compromise his worldly time for this for these specific events.
As the community was growing, it was evident that the city of Toronto needed a centralized place to commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussain.
Hussaini's contribution to Shia community, I think the biggest contribution is having that place for worship in Midland. Now, why we always keep on saying on different occasion when we talk about Midland. Midland has something very special about it. Midland, not just in Imam Bargah, was not just a Hussainiya. It was I would say a training center. It was a refuge camp. Back in those days when people were slowly migrating and coming, and as they were discovering Hussaini, Imam Bargah, when they used to come, they used to find people of the same origin and commonalities, difficulties, struggles. They were all common. So they're common factors. And each one of them can relate to each other. You will not find this subject in somebody's living room or any other place. This was Hussaini's Imam Bargah, which gave this room for people not just to listen to majalises, not to just commemorate Imam Hussein's gham, but to share each other problems also. And it was a training ground for kids, how to behave in a majlis, how to sit in a majlis. You know, reciting majalis or salam or nohas or marsiyas, it was well guided. It was like an institution.
So some of the challenges at Babul were that we were the only Indo-Pak family that was living in a predominantly Caucasian neighborhood. And you would see all the hijabs and you would see all the shalwar kameezes and people coming in those outfits, in Eastern outfits to majalis. You would get a lot of backlash from the community and children throwing stones and people yelling and slurring bad words. But my father ended up managing that. Eventually, building a relationship in the neighborhood and being involved within the community where they knew that this was a place of worship, this was a place of gathering, and eventually over time, just kind of people got used to that.
It was put together with love, right? It wasn't something so dramatic or something hi-fi where you see everything. It was something that was made with love.
There's a lot of stories for that place where people's hajats and specific mannats have come through, and so people essentially came there to fulfill their wishes. And what better name to be coined to be named after the title of Hazrat Abbas, Babul, right? So that's where that name came.
His Imam Bargah, his Hussainiya was one thing, and he was in love with it, no doubt. And I can tell you, the love was so immense that when they first, I saw them in their Ashur Khana, I saw them making tazia, making alam by hand. Nothing was commercially imported. Nothing. They will take cloth, they will make alam. They will take paper, tin foil, they will make tazia, they will make tabut. Complete dedication, complete dedication.
There was times where I know there was a severe thunderstorm or a severe blackout. Majlis still continued. No power in the household, no nothing. Majlis continued.
I believe my father's vision was very simple. I think his vision was that this Azadari needs to continue, and it will continue, it will spread. The love of Imam Hussain should always be in our hearts. He was a very principled person. Even if you were a person speaking from the mimbar, you had accountability for what you said. So he was very direct. When somebody spoke something from the mimbar that put any sort of blemish on the character of the Ahlulbayt, he questioned it. And I think what he saw from a vision perspective was just continuing that message and ensuring it passed from one generation to the next in the same beautiful essence that it should stay maintained.
As Hussaini uncle established the first Hussainiya in Toronto in 1977, aptly named Babul Hawaij, he quickly realized that the way the importance of the love of Imam Hussain alayhi salam that was passed on to him from the previous generation, he had a responsibility to ensure he did the same for the next generation. He took that responsibility seriously and wanted to have a deep connection with the city's youth.
So growing up with many of the youths in Toronto, now they're adults. There was a lot of inspiration to the community that he brought, and he typically gave love to everyone as a father. And if you were to question anyone, or I guess you wouldn't even know that, that passion of fatherly love, everyone felt the same way towards him. He never singled out anyone. He felt as though, he wanted to connect with the younger youths.
He had this classic thing that people always remember, that he gave you a kiss when he saw you. So, because the children were all, in his eyes, his children. So everybody, even today, when adults went up to him, there weren't adults in front of him, there were kids in front of him, he still gave them a kiss, and they felt that connection and closeness to him. So he played that father figure role. And I learned later, when people came to me and told me that your dad advised me on this, and I talked to your dad about this on a daily basis. People had marital issues, and they went to him about it. So, I didn't realize how deep rooted that was and how connected he was with a lot of the people of my age, or people who were younger. They had a lot of very close connection with him. He was very approachable. He didn't wear an imama on his head, but he was a very practical, real life person that people can actually go to for advice, and be able to kind of open up to without having any barriers, essentially.
And this is very important, that he could convey to his young next generation, to his children, and to the grandchildren. Alhamdulillah, I was in their home a few days ago. All the kids were reciting Nawhas and this, and mashallah reciting, sitting on the mimbar now, inshallah, soon. And we have to do it, and we have to do it in our own language. And that was a very big legacy.
Hussaini uncle wanted to provide a platform for young reciters, and thus he always made sure he gave the youth that opportunity.
Hussaini uncle is a marhum of who all our life we've seen that he's contributed to Azadari in all aspects of life, be it ziyarat, or for us, me as a reciter, I'm also a Soz Khan, and now I'm learning Shairi as well, in all, basically all for Madh Ahlulbayt. And he is one of the pioneers that I can say that have supported and given us kids and my generation way in this way, and he's basically shown us the light.
I found my basis for Azadari, everything that I've learned and that I know about Azadari started at 731 Midland at Hussaini Uncle's house, at the mansion, at the house. And Hussaini Uncle was he was a role model, he was a father figure, he was a friend, he was so many things. It's very hard to put into words the feelings that I had for him. Years, and I started with the help, with the encouragement, with the grounds that were prepared at 730 Midland by Hussaini Uncle and his family. In fact, until the 1st of Muharram of this year, I would go there and he would be very encouraging. And I remember maybe 3 or 4 years back, I was busy reciting nohas and salams at other locations. And out of nowhere one day, Hussaini Uncle called me. And he's asking me how I did, where I was, why I wasn't coming, how he missed me. And he encouraged me to continue doing what I'm doing and to not forget the roots where we started.
The biggest inspiration Hussaini Uncle received to have him continue his work was going to the shrines of the Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam and visit those personalities whose pleasure he seeked to gain all throughout his life.
I think what connected me to Azadari or to our Imam is by going for ziyarat, for seeing where our Imams were shaheed, or for seeing where baby Zainab. So small things like that, that touched me.
He, at a very young age, went for ziyarah, and he took us, the family, the entire family, for ziyarah. And he believed in instilling the love of Imam Hussain in us from a very young age. And I know that the effects of going to ziyarah has a lot to do with what we do and who we are today. But he had a very close connection to Imam Hussain and to Imam Ali and to the Ahlulbayt overall. He had a very close connection, a very close love. So his inspiration, I believe, came from there.
Everyone who went with him liked him. He was very good-natured, and it is difficult to handle people, especially when you're traveling to a new country, and we see what happens to Iraq and Iran and other places where don't know even the language. And he used to take groups. He was very successful in that. And once they came back, they became his longtime friends.
During one of the many ziyarah trips, Hussaini Uncle and members of his group faced many challenges. Yet, his love for Imam Hussain alayhi salam remained unwavered.
One day we were sitting at his house, I think it's after Majlis or some gathering. And this is where Hussaini broke up in news. He says, how about if we go to ziyarat? We all together, our families only. Not in a caravan part, but just his family and my family. So my mother, myself, and we were quite excited with this. And when he broke the news, and I said, what we have to do, Hussaini? And he said, oh, leave it up to me. This is style. This is Hussaini's style. Leave it up to me. And he was always there to leave it up to me. And Hussaini, please, you have to tell us the plan. He says, the plan is bring me your passport and I make sure that I get the visas. And I said, okay, and then what? He said, then we will start buying tickets. And I said, then what? And he said, then we all depart together. I said, so what is the plan? He said, we will go to Umrah also. And I said, wonderful. So that was my first Umrah that I did with him. And then he said, we will go to Syria and Iraq. And of course, in Iraq, we'll go to Najaf and Karbala and Samarra and all these places. And I says, but you know what era we are in? I mean, you know that how situations are in Karbala. What shocked me was his statement. As he said, can Karbala be stopped with anybody? And I was speechless. And I don't know what he meant by it and how strong that little statement was. Can Karbala be stopped by any event? And I said, Hussaini, I jokingly said, I said, you don't have to commit suicide. I mean, you have to think about these things. Plan accordingly. He says, yes, I have planned. And my plans are led by Mawla Imam Hussain alayhi salam. This is his, I'm sorry, I'm becoming a little emotional, but this is how he took his life, his entire journey in the love of Imam Hussain. So we went there, and it was a terrible time. Saddam was in control, and everywhere we went, we had to go through very, very immense security issues, and we had to always undo our luggage and put it back into the van. A lot of difficulties. We were also almost looted by the taxi drivers because we had no experience. Currency exchange, trouble. So one day he sat down with me. He said, we're all going through this turmoil. But at the end, you remember, Imam Hussain has asked Zaireen to stay for 3 days. On the third day, he says, my belief is that all our worries will go away. And alhamdulillah, the third day, we were laughing what happened in the last 2 days to us. What an iman. And I will never forget. And then we all performed our rituals, ziyarat. When I came back, I hugged him and I said, you know what? You have given me another level of iman in me. And he said, yes, and that's how we should be.
Behind every great man is a greater woman. The story of Hussaini uncle and his journey in establishing the commemoration of the martyrdom of Imam Hussain alayhi salam would not be complete if we did not discuss the contribution and the support that he received from his wife, whom we affectionately call Shamshad Auntie.
My mother has been a very crucial part of his life. She has been his backbone, she's been his advisor, she's been his confidant. She has essentially helped him in everything that he's done. Her devotion and her love for the Ahlulbayt is on a level that I can't even explain. All my love and instilled, definitely the values come from my father, but that love directly comes from my mother. She has been a big contributing part of that. She spent her entire life, despite the fact she's not doing so well right now, but inshallah, alhamdulillah, we ask for you to do dua for her to be better. She spent a majority of her life, spending time cooking for the majalis of the members that attend the majalis and the guests that come for the majalis of Imam Hussain. And she will do it. She will do it day in, day out, without fail, for a couple of hundred people every single night. And she says, till the day that I stop breathing is the day I want to continue to be able to cook for the guests of Imam Hussain. You would think at times we would tell her, hey, let's just cater the food versus you having to do this, but she will get her pots and pans out and she will cook with the devotion that she has, because she goes, I'm doing this for the guests of Imam Hussain, and I'm doing this to get the honor of Bibi Sayyida Fatima. Salamullahi alayhi.
My dad would make sure that, if there's majlises going on, let's make sure that the food's there. My dad could have easily got a helper, or my mom could have got a helper, or a cleaner, or something, but they would always doing together. My dad never let my mom do things on her own. He was either, they're together. They're going out getting the groceries for the Muharram, for the majlises to go. They're out, one's shopping, one's making food, one's doing this. There's always that togetherness.
Hussaini uncle spent his entire life serving as many lovers of Imam Hussain alayhi salam as he could. And he wanted to ensure this continued even after his passing.
Recently, we've been doing construction at Babul to expand it. So one of the things that my dad always wanted to do was, kind of make the space bigger and modify it. And so we spent all of last year together, my father and I, going to the city to get permits and get all that resolved. And things were delayed. They didn't happen according to the plan. So he's been talking about this for a number of years to be able to excite this plan forward. Recently, I think 2 days prior to him going to the hospital and him passing away, he asked me and he said to me, he goes, have you signed the contract for the construction? And I said to him, yes. And the minute I told him yes, I remember a sense of relief on his face, seeing that it's done.
After serving the community for over 40 years, there is no doubt that Hussaini uncle left his mark on the hearts of the believers in Toronto. Opening his doors to the entire city for so long made him loved by all. On October 11th, 2019, that love was shown when hundreds of people gathered to say farewell to him at his funeral and left a legacy that is difficult to put into words.
My father's funeral, believe it or not, in a weird way, I almost anticipated it to be a very large funeral because of the lives that he touched and the people that knew his name and people who hadn't even seen him or just heard of him had just flocked to. On his Soya Majlis, on his 40th Majlis, on his funeral, you could see the rows of people that came. And I don't remember half the people that greeted me and consoled me that were there because I was just in the shock and awe in terms of how many people were there. But it meant a lot to me because, you know what, I was associated to somebody who was such an important person. And the fact that he's not here, but his work is still here, makes him a person who lives on.
If I have love for Imam Hussain in my heart, part of that love comes from him. I grew up in this city, and my bunyad and my base of Azadari, the avenue by which I was introduced to Imam Hussain, the gham and the ada and the mu'jiza and the ni'mat of Azadari traveled through 731 Midland Avenue, the house of the marhum. I grew up learning who Imam Hussain was through him, crying for Imam Hussain through him. And he has a part of that in a lot of our lives. The khidmat of him, his family, his khandan towards Azadari is well known. And that's why when you look at the way that the Quran describes death, it describes death as a mulaqat. إِنَّ الْمَوْتَ الَّذِي تَفِرُّونَ مِنْهُ فَإِنَّهُ مُلَاقِيكُمْ. That this death that you run from, do farar from, you'll eventually meet this death. It'll take you back. It'll take you back to the alim and the shahid, فَيُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. And that death will show you what you did in this world. And maybe, just maybe, you know, this death will show Hussaini uncle that he taught people like me, my generation, the gham of Imam Hussain. Right now, I identify Azadari to be the avenue of my salvation, the avenue of my identity, the avenue of my pride. And a portion of that is what Hussaini uncle and his family and his khandan taught for us. Back then, we were growing up, all of us, many of us together, and it was a tarbiyat by community. It was a tarbiyat by committee. He had every right to give me tarbiyat just like my own father marhum did. He had every right to tell me where to stand during matam, what to do in matam, how to give jawab to a noha, how to cry for Imam Hussain, the etiquette of all of that. I learned from someone like him. Even on the mimbar sometimes, when I would come off the mimbar, he would walk from the back, and he would come, and he would hug me, and he would kiss me. He'll tell me, Asad Beta, I'm very proud of what you've done. And that's not me. It's just simply out of love that he would have for everybody else.
And like I said, like there's so many people that are calling us with dreams and whatnot, telling us that, you know, he's serving food for the imam, or he's making food for the imams, or he's doing a majlis, or he's doing, you know, that shows that, you know, after this life, this is a temporary life that we're in. There is another life, and that's what he strived for, and that's what he always showed us, that don't get caught up with what you're doing right now. Know that, you know, where you need to be is where you want to, for your love for Imam, you want to be there. And I'm happy, I'm content where he is. It's the fact that he's not.
And one thing that my father would essentially be known for, I guess his legacy would be, is that you leave the politics at the door, and in the majalis of Imam Hussain, none of that should enter. That farsh, when it lays down and it's prepared and the food that enters that farsh and the people that sit on that farsh and the person who sits on that mimbar is only there for the purpose of spreading the love of Ahlulbayt, talking about the fazail of Ahlulbayt, and saying the masayib of Imam Hussain and his family and what happened in Karbala. That's exactly what we should have, and that's the institution that this is built on, and it shouldn't have anything other than that. I mean, it should be held in spiritual regard.
So his legacy was that as long as I'm living and when I'm departing, this institution should remain intact and should flourish. And he has set some difficult standards also. Discipline, coaching young people, discipline and tehzeeb, if there could be a word in English about it. And he was very fond of this. How to come in, how to sit, how to recite. And this was like an institution, like I said before. His legacy, to maintain that part, was going to be a challenge for up generation, coming generation, or his generation, his kids. And I'm sure, but he has trained in such a way that I have no doubt that the way he has done his homework, knowingly that while he's living and when he depart this world, he would like to maintain those standards.
When I was writing this up, or when I was thinking about that I have to do this, I still didn't want to accept it. And I don't want to accept the fact that he's gone, because I feel as though he's still here. And it sounds weird, but because I know where he is, I'm happy. But not being able to see him or be in front of him and get that hug, that's what is, till this day, it's been almost a year, and knowing that people still seeing him or feeling him or miss that hug, those are small things that, that connect and say, you know what, this person, he was someone.
The one thing I miss about my father is just, not in my recent years, is not being able to spend as much time with him. Taking for granted the opportunity that I had. You, like everybody, you kind of think your parents are going to live forever, your father's going to live forever, and you get busy in your own life and your children and things like that. So you kind of wish you spent more time in the latter years with him. Although he lived with me and we spent time together, it's just one of those things. I just want one more day where I could come home and give him a hug and talk to him. And he honestly, he was like it was like a friend to me, more than a father sometimes, where I could talk to him about personal things. I could sit down with him and get advice from him on things, and just being able to open up and talk to him about what I'm feeling today is something that I'm never going to be able to get again.
To be honest with you, to find one word for my dad, it's very difficult, man. Humble is not enough. His generosity was not enough. It's just loyal. Yeah.
Loyal to what? Loyal to
To his cause, his meaning, his love for, to not just Azadari, to his family, to his people that he loved, to the community. I think that's summed him up.
And as a friend, I never found him at a distance. He was very close. No matter what we are discussing, on what subject matter, if I'm looking for any help, moral or spiritual or whatever, he never disappointed, not just me only. I think the entire community will say the same thing what I'm saying, that they were never disappointed all along, throughout his life. What a man. What a man to remember, and will always be remembered.
As part of his legacy, and more importantly, following the footsteps of Aba Abdullah alayhi salam, Hussaini uncle wanted to ensure he helped with the spread of knowledge, thus opening a school in the city of Najaf.
یہ میرا بڑا بیٹا ہے اب ماشاءاللہ سے یہ اس چیزوں کو سنبھالیں گے ہمارا تو وقت آ گیا کیونکہ ہم ظاہر بات ہے کہ 70 کے قریب ہو رہے ہیں تو اب کب تک چلیں گے
اپنی نسلوں کو سکھاتے رہو ماتم کا ہنر سینہ در سینہ کرے بس یہ عزاداری سفر جیسے حالات بھی ہوں رسم یہ جاری رہے